Originally published in Spanish in 2011, The Sound of Things Falling is a realist, political thriller by Colombian author Juan Gabriel Vásquez. The novel takes place in 2009 Colombia, while frequently flashing back to earlier decades. It follows law professor Antonio Yammara as he recounts the country's drug trade and his own violent past under the corrupt rule of kingpin Pablo Escobar. When a sudden memory awakens Antonio's buried trauma, he is forced to confront the horrors he and his family endured in the 1980s and 1990s, including the mystery surrounding Ricardo Laverde, a drug pilot acquaintance who was murdered before Antonio's eyes. As Antonio investigates Ricardo's life and death, he realizes that he cannot escape the lingering chaos left by Escobar's reign. The novel won the 2011 Alfaguara Prize, and Anne McLean's 2013 English translation received the 2014 International IMPAC Dublin Literary Award. It also became a New York Times bestseller. Narrated in the first person by Antonio, the story opens in Bogotá in 2009. Antonio teaches law in the capital and enjoys a comfortable life, with a stylish apartment, a wife named Aura, and a baby on the way. A newspaper story about the killing of a hippopotamus that had escaped from Escobar's defunct zoo in the Magdalena Valley triggers a repressed memory, transporting Antonio 13 years back to a Colombia still scarred by Escobar's violent legacy. In 1996, when Antonio was not involved with female students like Aura, who had solicited sexual favors for grades before becoming pregnant, he spent much of his time in billiard halls. One night, while playing pool, he meets Ricardo Laverde, a former pilot recently released from a 19-year prison term for drug trafficking. Initially unaware of Ricardo's criminal past, Antonio grows closer to him, though he insists they were never truly friends, only acquaintances. One day, Ricardo receives a mysterious cassette tape and searches for a player to hear it. When he finally plays it in a salon, he bursts into tears and flees. Moments later, while walking with Antonio outside the pool hall, Ricardo is shot in the street by a motorcyclist. Antonio is wounded in the stomach. The incident leaves Antonio a shadow of his former self. He becomes consumed with uncovering the truth about Ricardo's life and sudden death, neglecting his own well-being and causing his relationship with Aura to deteriorate. Despite severe post-traumatic stress, sexual impotence, and dependence on painkillers, Antonio persists, confronting the constant violence of Bogotá, bombings, assassinations, and street attacks, as he digs deeper into Ricardo's past. Antonio discovers that Ricardo's American wife, Elaine Fritz, had died in a plane crash, and that Ricardo had been mourning her at the time of his murder. The novel's title alludes to this crash, as well as others linked to Escobar's attempts on public figures, including a failed assassination by plane bombing. The tape Ricardo played, recorded from Elaine's fatal flight, becomes Antonio's key to understanding Ricardo's enigmatic life and death. The narrative then moves to the 1930s to explore Ricardo's grandfather, an ace pilot, and the 1960s, when Elaine arrived in Colombia with the U.S. Peace Corps. Historical context, including Nixon-era drug policy and the U.S. Peace Corps' unintended role in cultivating potent coca, illustrates how Colombia remained mired in drug-related violence decades later. Antonio is later contacted by Maya Fritz, Elaine and Ricardo's daughter, who fills in the missing pieces of Ricardo's life. He learns that Ricardo had run drugs for Escobar and served a 19-year sentence. Maya reveals that Elaine died in a plane crash while visiting Colombia, and the black box Antonio possesses originates from that flight. Unaware of Antonio's family, Maya and Antonio briefly engage in a sexual relationship. The novel concludes with Antonio returning to Bogotá to find Aura gone, having taken their child, and Ricardo's killer remaining unidentified. Antonio's life is irreparably altered by his confrontation with the past, highlighting the enduring impact of Escobar and the drug trade on Colombia, felt even by those with no direct connection. The Sound of Things Falling has been praised as genuine and magnificently written by Library Journal, deeply affecting and closely observed by the Los Angeles Times, and a masterpiece by Booklist. It is Vásquez's fifth novel, following Persona, Alina Supplicante, The Informers, and The Secret History of Costaguana, with two later works, The Shape of the Ruins and Reputations, further cementing his reputation. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe.